Colin Finnerty was born on August 18, 1982 in Southfield, Michigan, a city with a population of just over 76,000. He was the son of Timothy Francis, known as Tim, and Maureen Finnerty, and he had 3 siblings, Timothy Jr., Brendan, and Courtney. When Colin was 5 years old, his family relocated to Brighton, Michigan, a smaller town with a population of around 7,000. Family members remember Colin as an exceptionally energetic child who developed a deep love for sports at an early age. One of his older brothers, who was 3 years his senior, recalled watching Colin play football for the first time and immediately recognizing his potential to become a remarkable player. Colin attended Brighton High School in Livingston County, where he quickly made a name for himself on the football field. By his senior year, he had earned the prestigious title of Livingston County Player of the Year. After graduating from high school, Colin enrolled at the University of Toledo in Ohio, where he continued to pursue his football career. However, despite his athletic achievements, he felt a sense of dissatisfaction and struggled to envision a future for himself at the university. As a result, Colin only stayed at the University of Toledo for 1 year. Around the same time, his older brother, Timothy Jr., was attending art school in Grand Rapids and had been keeping a close eye on a promising football program at Grand Valley State University in Allendale. The team's star quarterback, Kurt Enns, was about to enter his senior year and would soon be moving on, leaving a vacancy in the position. Recognizing an opportunity, Timothy Jr. took a highlight reel of Colin's performances, drove to the Grand Valley State campus, and personally delivered it to the coach, Brian Kelly. After watching the footage, Brian was thoroughly impressed by Colin's skills and offered him a spot on the team. This marked a pivotal turning point in Colin's career. During his first year at Grand Valley State, Colin served as a backup to Kurt Enns. However, once Kurt graduated, Colin stepped into the role of starting quarterback and immediately showcased his exceptional talent on the field. Standing at 6 feet 3 inches and weighing 235 pounds, Colin dominated the game, earning multiple accolades throughout the 2000 season. Those who knew him often remarked that off the field, he was just a regular guy, but on the field, he transformed into Superman. Like Clark Kent emerging from a phone booth, Colin's journey took many twists and turns. In 2007, he signed with the Baltimore Ravens, spending the majority of the season on the practice squad before earning a starting role by the end of the year. The following year, he had a brief stint with the Denver Broncos, followed by a season playing in Austria and another in Muskegon, Michigan. Colin's football career ultimately came to an end in 2009, prompting him to shift his focus toward his personal life. Around this time, Colin was in a relationship with a woman named Jennifer. The two married in 2010 and welcomed 2 children, a son named Caden and a daughter named McKinley. The family settled in Howell, Michigan, where Colin built a stable life, working a good job selling orthopedic medical devices. Despite the outward appearance of stability, Colin was privately battling challenges. He struggled with an opioid addiction, which stemmed from a back injury likely caused by weightlifting. Colin contemplated undergoing back surgery to address the issue, but the lengthy recovery time and his responsibilities as a father to 2 young children led him to postpone the procedure. Instead, his addiction worsened, culminating in a rehab stay in 2011. Although he showed significant improvement during his short time in treatment, he relapsed a few months later. From that point on, Colin's life became a cycle of recovery and relapse as he fought to overcome his addiction while balancing his roles as a husband, father, and provider. These struggles led to terrifying episodes of disorientation and paranoia, which ultimately culminated in a devastating tragedy. In 2012, during a gathering with friends in Detroit, Colin called his brother Tim in a state of panic. According to Tim, Colin was frantic, insisting that someone was chasing him. Such episodes became increasingly frequent, escalating until May 2013, when the unthinkable occurred. Just a week before the family had planned to celebrate Brendan becoming the godfather of Colin's infant daughter. In the days leading up to the tragedy, the brothers had spent time together playing darts in the basement. Around midnight, Colin took his inflatable boat out onto a nearby lake. At the time, he seemed to be acting normally, with no signs of behavior that would raise concern. The following weekend was Memorial Day, and the family had gathered in northwest Michigan, about 65 miles from Grand Rapids, for a holiday celebration at a cabin owned by Jennifer's parents. The cabin was located in the Bray Creek State Forest, a popular area for fishing, hiking, and camping. The day began like any other family gathering, filled with laughter and cherished moments. It was May 25th, 2013, a Saturday, and Colin was determined to make the most of every second with his loved ones. So much so that he stayed up late into the night, despite having gone to bed late the previous evening as well. The weekend seemed perfect, but it would soon take a tragic turn. The next day, May 26th, Colin woke up early. He prepared a bottle for his daughter, fed her, and then headed out to go fishing. According to sources, he returned shortly before lunch, ate a meal, had a few beers, and then took a nap. He woke up around 7 p.m., had some coffee, and decided to skip dinner. By 8:30 p.m., Colin told his wife, Jennifer, that he wanted to go fishing one last time before they left the cabin. He put on his vest, gathered his fishing gear, and headed to the river. Colin's father-in-law and brother-in-law accompanied him, helping him carry an inflatable boat and equipment to the water. It was nearly 9 p.m. when they left Colin by the river. The three men agreed to meet an hour later at another spot downstream. When Colin's father-in-law and brother-in-law arrived at the designated meeting point, Colin wasn't there. Initially, they weren't overly concerned, assuming he might have stayed longer if the fishing was good. However, around 10:30 p.m., Colin called Jennifer, sounding anxious and worried. He told her that two men were following him, strangers he had never seen before. This call marked the beginning of a harrowing and tragic sequence of events. The call lasted about 20 seconds before it abruptly dropped. Jennifer tried calling her husband back, but he didn't answer. Alarmed, she immediately contacted her father and brother, who were a few miles away from the cabin, and relayed what had happened. Jennifer's father and brother quickly rushed to the spot where they had left Colin by the river. When they arrived, they found only his inflatable boat on the riverbank. They searched the area, calling out for Colin, but there was no response. They then inspected the boat, looking for any clues that might explain his disappearance, but everything appeared normal. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. With no sign of Colin, they decided to return to the cabin, thinking he might have gone back there for some reason. However, when they arrived, they discovered Colin wasn't there either. Jennifer was beside herself with worry. Shortly after, Jennifer's brother received a phone call. It was Colin. He told his brother-in-law that he was lost, having run deep into the forest to hide from the men he believed were chasing him. He admitted he didn't know where he was or how to get back. This call only deepened the family's concern, as it became clear that Colin was disoriented and in distress. The situation was growing increasingly dire, and the family knew they had to act quickly to find him. Colin allegedly told his brother-in-law that things were getting very complicated, as if he were trying to convey that he wouldn't be able to escape the men he believed were pursuing him. Before the call ended, Jennifer and her brother heard Colin questioning the men who were supposedly chasing him. Jennifer later mentioned that at the same moment, she heard sounds of rocks or gravel crunching, as if Colin were running desperately. After the call abruptly ended, Jennifer, frantic with worry, tried calling her husband repeatedly, but none of the calls were answered. In a final attempt to reach him, she sent him a text message, urging him to stay where he was and assuring him that she and her brother were coming to find him. Jennifer and her brother immediately left the cabin and headed to the area where they believed Colin might be. They searched for a considerable amount of time but found no trace of him. As the night grew late, they decided to return to the cabin. By this point, the authorities had been notified and a search for Colin began shortly afterward. The next morning, Colin's father called his other son, Tim Jr., to inform him that Colin was missing. Tim was stunned by the news and revealed that the previous night, around the time Colin had disappeared, he had experienced a strange feeling, an almost overwhelming sense of dread, as if he had had a bad premonition. The family's anxiety deepened as the search continued, with everyone hoping for Colin's safe return. Tim Sr. and Tim Jr. joined forces, heading to the last known location where Colin had been seen to assist in the search efforts. By the time they arrived, county authorities were already combing the area and state police had been called in to provide additional support. Officers meticulously searched along nearby streams and rivers, checking every inch of the riverbanks while helicopters buzzed overhead, scanning the dense forest from above. During the search, the police discovered a vest, but the family confirmed it wasn't the one Colin had been wearing when he disappeared. Later, footprints were found approximately 3 kilometers north of the spot where Colin's father-in-law and brother-in-law had last seen him. Meanwhile, authorities attempted to track Colin's phone, but the results were baffling. The phone's location data pointed to areas nearly 5 kilometers to the south and then 8 kilometers to the north, a distance that would have been impossible for Colin to cover on foot in such a short amount of time. As news of Colin's disappearance spread, the local community rallied together. Numerous residents volunteered to join the search, and many of Colin's friends from high school and college traveled to the area to offer their support. The outpouring of help was so overwhelming that authorities eventually had to ask some volunteers to return home, as the large number of people searching was unintentionally interfering with the organized efforts of the police and professional search teams. Despite the challenges, the search continued, with everyone holding on to hope that Colin would be found safe. The police had to clear certain search areas to allow search dogs and helicopters to operate effectively, which led to some volunteers being asked to step back. As the case gained media attention, it was widely publicized across various outlets, drawing even more people to the scene to assist in the search. Tents were set up to provide food and water for the volunteers, reflecting the community's determination to find Colin. Amid the chaos, numerous theories began to circulate about what might have happened to him. One theory suggested that Colin had accidentally stumbled upon a criminal's hideout and was harmed to prevent him from reporting what he had seen. Others ventured into the realm of the supernatural, speculating that he might have been abducted by extraterrestrials. However, the most widely accepted explanation was that Colin had simply gotten lost in the vast forest and, after wandering aimlessly, his phone battery died, leaving him unable to call for help. Less than 48 hours after his disappearance, the police discovered Colin Finnerty's body in a clearing on private land bordering the forest, nearly 2 kilometers from where his boat had been left. He was found lying face down with no visible signs of injury. The authorities transported his body for an autopsy, during which the coroner found no evidence of trauma or physical injuries. The exact circumstances surrounding Colin's death remained unclear, leaving his family and the community grappling with unanswered questions and a profound sense of loss. The autopsy ruled out a heart attack, and the toxicology report came back negative for any substances that could have directly caused Colin's death. It was ultimately determined that Colin died from pneumonia caused by inhaling vomit. This condition was linked to his use of oxycodone and the presence of chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE. Colin's brain was sent to the Boston University CTE Center for analysis, where the diagnosis of CTE was confirmed. CTE, or Chronic Traumatic Encephalopathy, is a neurodegenerative disease caused by repeated head impacts. It is commonly found in athletes who participate in high-impact sports such as boxing, mixed martial arts, MMA, and American football, where repeated blows to the head are frequent. According to reports, in recent years alone, 345 NFL players have been diagnosed with CTE-related conditions after their deaths. Following Colin's tragic death, his family publicly disclosed his struggles with opioid addiction, which had led to multiple hospitalizations over several months. They also spoke about his episodes of hallucinations and paranoia, which were consistent with his history and the evidence surrounding his disappearance. Authorities concluded that Colin's death was the result of another severe episode of hallucination and paranoia, exacerbated by his CTE and opioid use. In the aftermath, Colin's wife, Jennifer Finnerty, filed a lawsuit against the NCAA, joining 3 other families of deceased college football players. The lawsuit aimed to hold the organization accountable for its role in failing to adequately protect athletes from the long-term effects of head injuries and the risks associated with CTE. Colin's story became a poignant reminder of the devastating consequences of repeated head trauma and the need for greater awareness and prevention in contact sports. The lawsuit against the NCAA, filed by Jennifer Finnerty and joined by 3 other families of deceased college football players, claimed that repeated concussions sustained during their playing careers led to their premature deaths. However, Colin Finnerty's family was surprised by the lawsuit and chose not to participate. Colin's brother, Tim Jr., expressed that the family did not believe concussions were the direct cause of Colin's death. Tim stated that Colin had only been diagnosed with 1 concussion during his college years and emphasized that the coaches and medical staff at Grand Valley State University had treated him appropriately. Unfortunately, the lawsuit created tension within the family, as their perspective on Colin's death differed from the claims being made in the legal action. Colin Finnerty's funeral was held on June 3, 2013, and was attended by hundreds of people, including family, friends, and former teammates from both high school and college. The service was a testament to the impact Colin had on those around him and the love he inspired in his community. In 2018, Colin was posthumously honored by the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame, recognizing his achievements as a standout athlete and the legacy he left behind. Despite the tragedy of his death, Colin's memory continues to be celebrated by those who knew and admired him.